Righty, good people. Thank you for joining us. This is actually our first Maize and Blue review. Obviously, the Michigan game just wrapped up. They beat Western 47-14. So a big win for Michigan. I mean, it was one that I think, you're playing a MAC school. So you understand that this is a quote unquote warm up, but we even talked about it that Western has a legitimate offense, and they we talked about Michigan's defense and all the struggles they had with Don Brown, and the defense played well. They came out a little bit slow. I thought that first drive, because once Western got the ball, I think they scored their first drive. And then after that, the defense had a bend don't break, type of mentality the first couple drives, and then after that, it was just dominance. We'll kind of get into the specifics, but it was good to see, the big man, Aiden Hutchinson, just wreak havoc. It was incredible to watch him. There wasn't much that Western had for him, and I feel like, especially on the back end, it's going to be very important to have that pass rush, because you saw that first drive, Michigan didn't get a pass rush, and Western was able to drive down the field. So I thought that was really big. Blake Coram, holy cow! I knew he was quick, but I didn't know he was that quick. So a lot of good things, as far as the game. I'll kind of kick it to you, Dre. What are your just kind of off the top early thoughts of everything?
Yeah. Well, for one, as we continue to do recaps of games throughout the season, it's going to be looked at from two folds. On one part, it's going to be very micro. It's going to be based on what we see in the game, right? The positives and negatives. But on the other side, it's going to be, okay, well, how does the results of this game and the things we saw in this particular game translate to the bigger goal of the season, which is, to be quite frank with you, year 7 in the hardball is to get to the Big Ten title game and to win the Big Ten title. That's just it. It can't be a rebuilding. The expectation shouldn't go down, right? Once it gets to the end of the season, will we try to take everything into account? Yes, but the expectation should be to win a Big Ten title. So we're going to judge his team on how they're trending to get there. So when people hear our analysis and feedback on the game, you have to keep that in mind. We're trying to build this year to winning something. So I'll start off by saying that. But this game, great game for Michigan. I thought that Western Michigan came out and they proved that any kind of nervousness or fears about their proficient passing game and flasher could give them issues was true. The first couple drives, they were really good. LB was hitting guys. He was making great throws. His receivers were making plays for him. I thought that the play calling for Western Michigan was really good. They actually, in a way, did a much better job getting LB some easy targets to throw to than I thought Josh Gaddis did with Michigan. But you got to give credit to the Michigan defense. They settled in. They didn't panic. They ironically decided to go a lot more man-to-man as opposed to zone. I thought LB was a lot more comfortable with zone coverage. He was able to kind of sit there and just find guys. Man-to-man, it benefited Michigan because it allowed our front seven to overpower Western and our defenders against our Western Michigan caliber receivers. They were able to stick with them. Right, and it caused them a lot of issues. And we started to get a lot of pressure on LB, and he took a lot of hits.
He did. He's a tough quarterback, man. That guy, I've never watched him before.
I like him.
Holy cow, he was tough, man. I remember that first big shot that it was like a third down, and Hutchinson, man, had an incredible inside move, and just was right on Ellerby and drilled him. But he got the ball off. It was a big first down conversion. That he is a tough man. If Western doesn't win the MAC, I'd be shocked because of just that offense and that quarterback. Like, granted, they scored basically 7 points, and they scored another touchdown in garbage time. But I mean, I still think that's a formidable offense, even though Michigan held them to essentially 7 points. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy.
He's one of those guys to watch. Real quick, I say this. He's one of those guys to watch maybe in a transfer portal one day. Like if you're one of those teams that need a grad transfer or something.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys to watch. I like him a lot. I mean, there was a couple throws he made that his receivers dropped the ball, and there's not like he threw one streak pass like perfectly in the basket, like 40 or 50 yards, and the guy just dropped. I mean, it's a very, very small select few of quarterbacks in the nation that can make that throw under duress. And I thought he was fantastic. Offensively, Coram, very explosive, but good. I think we're going to go into the offense a little bit. So go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got to talk about, the Ronnie Bell injury.
Yeah.
I'll kick it to you and really get your thoughts, and then we can kind of go on from there. So, what are your thoughts on the Ronnie Bell injury?
It's tough. It's unfortunate. He was having a great game. I mean, they called an offensive pass interference. I mean, it was kind of
that was an awful call. That was an awful call.
Going back and forth. It was an incredible catch. I mean, I think that should be an ESPN top 10 play regardless. That was an incredible catch. The play that he got hurt. I mean, then he called a touchdown down the field in which he ran a great route. And I'll give credit. Kate
he put it out there.
A perfect ball led. He basically led Ronnie even more open than he was. Going into his outside shoulder from the slot. So he's working from the middle of the field and kind of working him towards the sideline. It was like perfectly drawn up, perfectly thrown. K has to execute that throw. He did it perfectly. So you got to give him credit. And Ronnie did the rest. Even the play he got hurt, it was a great return.
Yep.
And I think ironically, the broadcast, I think Dan Orlowski was like, hey, Ronnie Bell is really dangerous. I wouldn't kick it right to him, and he gets a
line drive. Kick it right to him. Yep.
He was one level away from breaking it through. Looks like he probably got tangled up or something like that. So it's unfortunate, but it looks serious. But we'll find out what it is. But it has to be next man up.
Mm-hmm. So if Ronnie Bell, let's hypothetically speaking, say he misses next week. Who are you gonna look to kind of have, who's going to be that next man up if you had to coin somebody?
AJ Henning. Got to use guys like AJ Henning. They showed today that they have their explosive plays.
He's fast.
He's really fast, man. Coram in the running. I love the tandem for Haskins and Coram. We can talk about the percentage breakdown of run versus pass eventually, but I thought that our 1-2 tandem at running back proved that they were worth, the hype they got. They are different, but they are a complement to each other, and that works really well for them. I think Sanderstill, he's gonna have to step up, but he's a talented kid, and also Eric All, our tight end. He's a big target. He's somebody in the preseason that you hear a lot about in practice that he's ready to burst, and take that next step. He's another guy they're going to have to rely on. They have enough talent to get it done. They have the athletes. But Ronnie Bell's a big loss. He's a big loss.
Yeah, he's, because he's really when you look at the pass game, at least for me, like he is the focal point. He's your wide receiver one. Like he's, it's a big deal to not have him next week. And honestly, I'm surprised that we really didn't see much of, Sanderstill. We didn't see much Cornelius Johnson. I mean, they were on the field, but they didn't really get the ball much. They didn't touch the ball. So that was kind of, a little, I was just expecting to see those guys, like, what I mean? Touches at least, because I would look at it today and like, and I would pose the question to you, like, do we even know what we have with Cornelius Johnson or Mike Sanderstill in the pass game? Like, we don't, what I mean? Like, we're not in that position right now. So I agree with you. I think it probably is going to be more just the guys that you currently have, just getting them the ball a little more. Coram catching the ball out of the backfield, Haskins. Although I don't think he's in the normal rotation, even Donovan Edwards, Like he looked really good, really shifty. So I think there's guys that are ready to to go, but you just would have loved to see those guys getting the ball, today, to where we would already know kind of what's going on as far as who can we lean on.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the part where you have to try when you look at this game. It's easy to get caught up in the score, like, hey, we put up 47 points. That's a
Mm-hmm.
great offensive output, and it is.
Yeah.
But it's how you get those points. And like we said before the season started, like we said in our season prediction, uh, these games against lesser opponents, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois, Rutgers. Well, we'll see about Rutgers. You have to use those games as a means to practice and experiment with your offense. Take some shots down the field. Work those guys like Cornelius Johnson. Guys who you may not have 100% faith in right now, that they can make a big time play in a game that you need, in a moment in the game that you need, but in games that you're going to be much better than your opponent, like Western Michigan. You need to take those opportunities, because it will be needed when you play at Wisconsin, when you play at Penn State, when you play in Ohio State. I mean, you look at the Penn State-Wisconsin game right now, they're in a dogfight, a low-scoring game. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Not because the offenses are not good, but because they are two really strong teams, very talented, very disciplined, and the margin of error is very, very small, right? And you need to you never know what the game is going to dictate and what plays you need to be able to rely on or dig into your playbook to do. And unless you practice that, it's hard to just do that when you need it, right? So that's why it was kind of disappointing to see Kate had limited passing attempts. I know that they ran the ball so effectively, but the point is, chances are you won't be able to run the ball like that when you want it and shred the defense against the bigger teams. That's where it gets concerning.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. We'll start off with the positives and the good things that happen, and then we'll kind of talk about kind of the criticisms a little bit, like just things that I think we had hoped to see. So we'll definitely get into that. But let's talk about the run game. I mean, I think they ended up with 334 yards rushing.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts with seeing with today's results with the run game?
I just love the change of pace that both running backs bring to the game, man. And I don't think that's fake. I think that will translate week to week. It just would depend on, we be able to get 300 rushing yards on 150. You know what I'm saying? Like how many of those explosive plays will you be able to get against the better opponents, right? But I love it. I thought the offensive line did a really good job, creating a host to run back to run through. Anytime as a defense, you have to adjust and game plan for different types of running backs in the backfield. It's difficult because on certain, you may have to adjust your personnel, right? If you see Blake Coram back there, you may need to have some faster guys on the field, a little bit more shifty. You see a guy like Haskins, who's more of a patient power runner, you may need to be a little bit more bulkier. Can you change guys out quickly like that, right? It creates a lot of issues. And then also, when you have a running game like that, in theory, it should open up the passing game. So I was very impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch. Like I said, we to kind of start it off, when we first hopped on, but I knew Blake Coram had some explosiveness. I didn't know he had all of what he does, though. I was shocked at how just quick and explosive he. Yes, in a good way. Yeah. In a good way. He was dude was shifty. He was, for not being a very big guy, he still ran physical.
Yeah.
Ran behind his pads, like just did a great job, caught the ball out of the backfield. Like he is a really good he's a good complement to Haskins, who is going to be that really physical downhill, between the tackles type runner.
Mhm.
And to have both types of running backs, like that definitely is going to change your dynamic as an offense. To be able to have that type of, we have both guys. Like we have that physical guy that's going to hurt you between the tackles, and then we have the guy that can hit a home run from anywhere. Like that's an incredible weapon to have for an offense. So that was incredible. And two, Donovan Edwards, right? I want to make sure I'm not mispronouncing the young man's name, but
Yeah,
yeah. So
perfect.
Donovan Edwards, he looked good. He looked really good. He looked shifty. He looks big, fast. You know what I mean? I liked his vision. Like I liked everything I saw from Donovan Edwards. I know he only had a couple carries, but what were your thoughts on Edwards, on him?
For a true freshman, I mean that it's a great sign. Like to get on campus and it's also it was refreshing to see a kid who got the typical Michigan recruiting hype. And when you've seen, especially at the running back position, right? And when you see him, you're like, okay, okay, I see why. When Derek Green first got on campus, I remember his first run. I'm like, this guy's a 5 star. Like, and so it's refreshing to see. Okay, no, this kid does look like he's legit. I can see why Nick Saban, flew up to visit him, right? Um, and that's a good sign. And we already talked about how we have a really good tandem with Coram and Haskins. Now you have a third talented freshman. Because like during the course of the season, as you saw with Ronnie Bell in the very first game, first half, guys will go down, guys will get banged up, and so the deeper you are, the better. Ohio State, typically, does 1 to 3 running backs deep. I think they played 3 running backs against Minnesota. I think it was Williams,
Trayvon Henderson
Trayvon Henderson, and I'm trying and Master
and
T.
Master T. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, hey, that's what the really good teams, the teams that we're trying to beat, to compete against, they are 3 running backs deep. So it was
Yeah.
good to see that we're trending towards that direction.
Yeah, and I think in just today's college football game, I mean, it's so rare to see one guy have 25 carries in a game. Like it's just it I think there's enough data to show, number one, you like to keep a guy fresh,
Yeah.
right? Like so to split up, the 35 carries between 3 different guys, like you're going to keep them fresh. You're going to have guys that are just eager to make a play because it's like, man, I'm only going to get 10 of these. I got to make them count. And it just, it gives the defense something else to worry about. Just another look, another, just something else that they have to
Fresh
scout
legs.
you on.
Just fresh
Yeah.
legs. I mean, in
Mhm.
the course of a drive, I mean, you're able to substitute and bring fresh legs on the field while the defense doesn't have that luxury. At least not
Right.
every. You can't substitute a whole defense, but you can
Right.
substitute. You know what I'm saying? And so that
Hmm.
has a benefit. You're gashing the team or you're wearing them down slowly on a drive, and you're able to bring in 3 legit threats. That's tough to deal with. That's really tough to deal with.
There's only so many Derrick Henrys in the world that can handle, just 40 carries in a game. Like that's
Guys like that can just, or Wisconsin seems to always have them, but Jonathan Taylor's guys who could just, guys different conferences, or guys you just hand the ball to and they can just take it. But no, I agree.
yeah. Cool. Okay. So let's move to the Michigan defense.
Yeah.
Go ahead and kick us off. What were your thoughts on the defense?
Well, this is the first time we saw them roll out, the 3-4. I was pleased to see that Aiden Hutchinson was able to, make an impact, and he didn't seem like he was uncomfortable standing up. That was a concern. Taking a traditional 4-3 defense, your best player on defense, taking him, you know, majority of his life, being in a 3-point stance and having him stand up and, see can he still be very impactful because he looked comfortable. And as you brought up earlier, he's had many quarterback pressures. He did a really good job. I thought Mike Morris a couple times, one of the interior linemen was blowing stuff up. That's what you want to see from your interior lineman, man. Dominate the line of scrimmage, push the line of the offensive line back, and if you can, penetrate and cross tackle for loss. And I thought he
Hmm.
looked really good there. Josh Ross was flying around the field. I feel like he was in Ellerby's face like multiple times today. I thought the corners, like Green and Gray, uh, still work in progress. There are a couple times.
I definitely thought they struggled early, but
Yeah,
came on after I think early on, especially like the first 2 and 3 drives, like that's still the time in a football game where emotion is still very much so a fabric in what's happening in the game.
yeah,
And I think Western initially had the emotion, like the big house from everything that I could see was just nuts. Um, but I do think that Western had that emotion of like, we could beat them, blah, blah, blah. Like you have that hype like
no,
early on. And I
yeah,
thought Western did really well with it early on in those in the first few drives on offense, and then things kind of settled down a bit for Michigan, and they made adjustments to where they switched things up a little bit on defense, and were definitely more effective after that.
yeah. And Daxton Hill, he continues to show that no, he's legit. He's legit 5-star kid. I mean, he's everywhere, and I
Mm-hmm.
love how they line up in so many different positions around the field. Sometimes he's playing safety. Sometimes I think I've seen him at nickel.
Mm-hmm.
I seen him line up all around the field, and it's really good sign when one of your most athletic players, every time there's a pile up, you see the number 30, right? And I saw him making plays all around the field. I saw him making plays in the passing game. I saw him making plays in run support. So he continues to show that he's an impact player in the secondary. You're going to need a guy like that. He's fast. He covers a lot of ground. Great closing speed. So I thought there was, like I said, things were a little bit shaky. Uh, I still don't quite know schematically how much different we're going to, besides our formation 3-4. We'll see over time how we adjust compared to how Don Brown used to adjust his defense. But today was a good start because Western Michigan, especially offensively, is no slouch. They were third, I believe, in scoring in the country last year. And Ellaby proved that he's a good quarterback. So I don't think it was a nothing. I thought they proved something today, and I think it's worth saying, okay, I think the defense may be ready to go into next week, and I could feel somewhat comfortable that they learned something today, right?
Well, in the thing that I look at is we talked about it on our last live that we did together when we did our kind of season preview. Is you talked about how traditionally just kind of the Jim Harbaugh team get punched in the mouth, and how do they respond?
Yeah,
And that's what I think about with the defense, because the Western's first drive out, they went down, scored, and it was a really good drive too. It was they just were methodical, moving the ball down the field. They go down and score, and then after that they don't score again. You know what I mean? Like just for context, I get it. Yes, they scored 7 points with like 3 minutes left. That was backups, and like
yeah, it's garbage time.
it's on the scoreboard, but I don't really count that.
Yeah,
So essentially, you go from they score on their first drive to, okay, we come out, we make adjustments, we know what they want to do. Here's how they're scheming us up. Let's make this adjustment, and then all right, guys, go out and play. And I thought they did a great job of that. Because that's a difficult thing to do. Like, it'd be easy to panic and like just what I mean. Everything goes out the window. Like, okay, well we're just gonna man up, and we're just, like they didn't do that. They okay, here's what we came out to do. Here's how they're attacking us. Here's how we adjust, and let's move forward, and let your guys go out and play ball. And I thought I thought the defense did a really good job. And like I said, I can't say enough about Aiden Hutchinson. That dude was a terror for Western Michigan. He was an absolute nightmare for them. Really after that first drive, and really on the first drive as well. I mean, he was, from the first snap to the last one that he played, he was a nightmare.
yeah, all over the field. A great a captain. I think his teammates really respond to him. I really liked how when his teammates make a play, like Mike Morris made a play, and he's like hyping them up. He's like pointing to him. Like people may overlook that, but that's like, hey, look at my guy right here. Look what he's doing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's pointing out for the coaches. He's pointing out for the world. Like, like it's not just about me. It's about us. And that's a small thing, but that says a lot about him as a player and a person.
What were your thoughts on the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that Michigan got early on? It was 55. I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I have to look it up. But what were your thoughts on it?
Well, that was an iffy call.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, like it's the first game of the season. You see it in every game, even the better teams around the country. You're gonna see it tonight. Clemson versus Georgia. Guys are gonna make silly mistakes. Those are mental mistakes, right? And you can't help if a ref makes a good or bad call. But what you can do is be as disciplined as possible, right? And like you said, once again, that's earlier in the game. Energy is really, really high. First game of the season. Guys have to find a way to reel themselves down a little bit. And so I think it's iffy call, but, it points to, you got to be more disciplined and avoid those situations as much as possible.
Yeah, it was something, but I didn't think it was enough to warrant a flag. I'm like, no. You'd like to not, have it happen, but I'm like, to me, like you said, come on, first game in the big house, like it was electric.
Fans last year,
exactly.
Got fans, it's packed, it's. Yeah,
that to me that should have warranted a warning. Like right. The ref go up to him like, "Hey, big fella, cut it. Relax. Chill,
right.
and just keep it moving." Like I just didn't think all of that was necessary.
Right.
As far as to throw a flag on him, but kind of is what it is. I don't know. Who, if you had to pick one, who would be your MVP of the game?
Oh, that is tough because can I go co-MVPs? Because they play the same position.
I'll let you cap out this time. Yes, you can go co-MVP.
Coram and Hassan Haskins. I thought that the running game just absolutely demoralized Western Michigan because they just got shredded, and it was just nothing they can do. Nothing they can do. I mean, you could say Aiden Hutchinson, but it's not like Aiden Hutchinson had like one big play. I felt that like he just had an overall impact. But it wasn't like he had like one big play that's like that changed the tide of the game. I mean, Blake Coram, his touchdown, Hassan Haskins scoring touchdowns. They're tandem and tag throughout the game. It's just Western had no answer, and they literally willed the game. Right, to the point where it just once Western couldn't keep up offensively and they were getting 3 and outs, the running game was just killing them. And so, like, I got to give it to those two. So, yeah, a little bit of a cop out, but it's hard for me to pick one over the other because they both made impacts on the running game. I say equally, actually.
Yeah, I would probably go Coram. It just because we all knew that Hassan Haskins was the actual starting running back. Like right. We knew that Blake Coram was going to get his touches and split time and things like that. But for me, I think Blake Coram got as many carries as he did because he was so explosive. Like in the time that he did touch the football. I just thought he did a phenomenal job. I thought that like I said, it looked explosive. He was physical, took care of the football, because that's a big thing too. It was incredible. So mine would definitely go to Blake Coram. And my backup would be, if I had to pick a second one, it would definitely be Hutchinson because just sacks, forced fumbles, like like I said, he was an absolute nightmare. He was a nightmare. So it was one of those things where like I said, he was just from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. He was just consistent and getting after it and wreaking havoc. So, well, we talked about a lot of good things that are that happened in the game today. So if you had to get to something that you feel like Michigan could have done better, like some, improvements, things like that, like what would you say?
I still believe that Josh Gaddis has to find a way to get to scheme guys open from a receiver standpoint. They have to take advantage of it more. And I thought a couple of drives that Western had early in the game was a prime example. Get your quarterback rolling now. A couple, routes in which a receiver sits in the zone, right? Help your quarterback get more of a rhythm. We saw some really good things. I'm not saying they didn't do anything. The shot to Ronnie Bell, he took a couple shots. That was actually surprised. I think they when they did the shot to Ronnie Bell was at 3rd and 3. When they could have easily tried to run, or they could have tried to do like a quick passing play to get the first down. They took a shot down the field. So I'm not saying they didn't do that. I just would like to see that a little bit more, because remember, the way I judge, I've judged both micro and also the big picture. Macro, it looked really, really good. But for the big picture, I just want to see a couple more shots down the field, because I know it's going to be needed more down the line. So, but other than that, it's hard to be upset with a 47-7 win. There was a lot besides, the first 5 minutes in the game. There was a lot that went well for Michigan today. I mean, I thought Cade, overall, he commanded his huddle really good. I thought that he showed that he's accurate. The things that you knew, that you heard about him, and also the evidence that we saw last year. He's an accurate passer. Doesn't have a great arm, but he's an accurate passer. He has composure. His teammates seem to rally around him, and he executed the plays that they called for him. So, and I don't think he had a turnover today either. So that's a really good thing. So that'll be it. Just continue to try to work on expanding the playbook, because it's going to be necessary. Don't get caught up like they did today, where down in the second, when they were closing out the first half, they ran the ball like 11 or 12 straight times. And that was the one drive that they kicked the field goal, which drove me nuts. You're up 24-7.
Go
Western,
ahead and punch it in.
They're not going to beat you.
Right.
At least pass a play. Do one pass and 2 passing plays, right? Be aggressive. Why are you kicking the field goal? Why are you kicking the field goal? This team's not going to beat you. Work on your goal line situations. You need to have it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little picky, but I just keep the bigger picture in mind. That's all.
Yeah. It's overall, like, yes, it's an A to A+ game. It just for me, as I know what Michigan fans want as far as for the season, like it is the difficulty for Jim Harbaugh to have an understanding of what we need to do today on Saturday to just beat the opponent who's right across from us, but also understanding that we have opponents coming down the line that we need to also be preparing to beat as well. And for me, like, I just don't feel like the pass game, to me, it's just simply enough reps. Like, Cade was efficient. I think he was 9 for 11 throwing the ball, but 11 pass attempts, like, is not, to me, here's how I feel, and, people can be upset about it. I don't feel Cade McNamara got better today.
Right.
Because with 11 reps, like, passing attempts, like, it's just not enough. It's not enough, because what if next week you get into a game with Washington, which I do think, and we'll get into it, a little bit as far as next week's game. I think Michigan's going to beat Washington. I just think Michigan has a better roster. I think they'll beat Washington. But what if the run game is not humming along the way that it did today? And now you have to throw it, right? Like, and most people are going to, right, and no Ronnie Bell. And most people are going to say, well, it'll be fine. I'm like, and it probably will be. But the thing is, I would rather know that the pass game is fine, right? Because we just threw it 25, 30 times this game. And you know what I mean? And we already see it. Like, man, Cornelius Johnson is explosive. I had no idea he was that guy. Or, Mike Samerstill, like, man, he's a really good route runner. He's got great hands, so on and so forth. Like, we don't know any of those things right now. Like, and that's the tough part. You know what I mean? With having a 47-14 win is to have a criticism. But I just truly think that And even if it's not Washington, even if that's not the game, you know what I mean, that you have to lean on the pass game. Well, let's fast forward and say Michigan wins every game and we get to the Ohio State game. You are going to have to throw the ball down the field against Ohio State to beat them.
Right.
And, you know, I had put a quick question, I did a short, you know, YouTube short video of, like, for Michigan fans, would you rather beat Ohio State or go to the Big Ten championship? And forget about the answers. Some of the answers were beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the goal, 11 pass attempts is not going to cut it. Not in a full game. And I think JJ might have had 6. Like, and he played what, a series or 2? Like, so to me, I'm like the ratios just, I didn't love the ratios as far as, like I said, Cade should have got a lot more work. And another thing, and this is more so just the broadcast, but they talked a lot about the Trevor Lawrence, Kelly Bryant dynamic, which I'm like, I guess I didn't love it because it didn't seem, I guess it didn't seem as applicable as I thought it would. Because to me, I'm like, no, like this is Cade's job. Whereas I felt like with the Kelly Bryant thing, it was just like, you know, they knew like Kelly can only get us so far. Like we went to the playoff, like, but for Clemson, that's not pretty far. That's exactly where we've always been. You know what I mean? Like, so it just, I don't know. I just felt like that was just kind of like maybe kind of like a subtle shot at Cade. Like I don't know. How did you feel about that?
It's easy to do that because Cade, it doesn't have the flash. Like there's nothing that's perceived to be special about Cade. He's just like a game manager, and by all means, you can win like that. It's just there's nothing. He's not a very big guy. Doesn't have a very strong arm. Not overly athletic, right? So it's nothing that pops. So it's very easy, especially when a big name kid comes in, to say, "Oh, well, you know, K's going to be the seat warmer." Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's good. Look, that's something that I've struggled with, and that's why I didn't automatically pencil K to be the starter. You know, once JJ came in, because JJ had all this big hype, right? You know, they're comparing him to, didn't he get a Drew Brees comparison or something like, or Baker Mayfield? You're hearing all this stuff, right? So you know, kid that's mobile, that's tough, that can make throws, and he made a great throw today. You know, like that could be special, right? That they can not just be a solid, you know, Big Ten quarterback. That can be a potential NFL guy, like have that Shady Patterson-esque type of, you know, hype at one point in time. So yeah, that's going to be something the kid's going to deal with. And you know, is it fair? No, but to be honest with you, all K has to do is win and continue to make plays. And one thing that will help is Gaddis and Harbaugh figuring out a way to prove that he can make those throws down the field. He can make those big time plays because it's all he can do. He doesn't have to do it all game, but can he do it a few times a game? And I give you an example, and I know this is not fair because they tend to have better athletes than we do, and they're further along as a program. But Ohio State versus Minnesota, Ohio State's down 14-10. They get the ball back. I think this is in the third quarter. And the very first play, Ryan Day draws up a play. He identifies one of the safeties is on Wilson. Number 5, Wilson for Ohio State. And I think at this time it's ironic. You're like, man, I don't see we heard all about Wilson, and I don't see nothing about him.
Mm-hmm.
Play goes, bam. All of a sudden, Wilson is literally on a TV screen, wide open, just jogging into the end zone. You go back and you watch the replay. Basically, they identified Wilson. There's a safety over the top, no help, in this open field. And they said, since you could tell, he's going to be open. Wilson hit it with a double move. The safety has his back turned. Literally, it's all lost in the sauce. And Wilson's wide open for a touchdown. Bam, 14-16 Ohio State. That quick. That was great execution on so many levels. That was a coaching staff, somebody above, or Ryan Day noticing, you know what? We have a matchup here. We can score a touchdown right here. Ryan Day probably said we need a touchdown right now. I want something aggressive. What do y'all see? They identified that very, very quickly. I think that was coming out of halftime, actually.
It was.
Very, very quickly, and they attacked. In Michigan, do those type of things. And on a lower scale, maybe a little slightly lower scale, but that's where we're talking about understanding throughout the course of the season. You need a touchdown. You need an explosive play. Can you go in your playbook and say, passing game-wise, this will work?
Yeah. It's tough because the tough part was of that first drive that Michigan had when Cade had, they came out and I think the second or third play came out empty formation, like no backs in the backfield. And Cade made a solid, like decisive decision, made a great throw. So he had, I think, 2 passes in the first, on the first drive. So I'm like, oh man, this is going to be great. Like continue to, to just pepper it in. Like it didn't have to be, we're an air raid team and
no,
I don't need that. You know what I mean? I'm like, but it's gotta be more than 11 though. You know what I mean? I'm like, it just, I like, and honestly too, for me, like I didn't see any RPOs. I didn't see a single one. Maybe I missed it, but I don't remember seeing any, RPOs.
You saw speed and space, and look, AJ Henning, play, like that was exciting. Look, those are exciting plays to see. I thought when we look at it, it was a trend in the right direction. And at sometimes, when you're trending in the right direction, you're trying to improve. You're not going to get everything at one time. And I'm trying to remind myself of that. And we'll see, man. It's Washington. Because if they are able to run the ball like they were against Western, will we do that? Will we open up the playbook passing wise a little bit? And we'll see week by week, will they change it? The only part that me and you agree on that is concerning when it comes to that is that this is like, if you really think about it, is what happened this Saturday any different than this time of the year, every other year under Harbaugh? If you really think
not at all.
Not really.
Not at all.
No matter we were doing a pro style offense or when we went to spread, we always hammered the weaker teams in September. Always. And so it's like, great job. We ran the ball well. We've always ran the ball well against lesser opponents. Okay. I want to give us credit, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's what we're getting at. What are we really trending towards changing? Really changing, right? And so, and that I'm sorry, I know it was very minute, but to be up 24-7 and 4th and 1 on a 2, you're kicking a field goal. I'm like, come on, man. What are we doing here? So, but I guess beggars can't be choosers. Maybe not. No.
It just, to me, I feel like it. Like you had mentioned, like this is what Harbaugh does in early September games. It is. We come out, we run the ball, we play bully ball on these guys. Like when you play the bad teams and you play teams that you're bigger than, you can move around, you can push around. Like that is what he's always banked on. And like I said, that's fine, right? I'm not gonna crush him in a 33 point win. Like, but at the same time too, it just, to me, like I was on Twitter and somebody that we both know, Kevin, I was just talking about this similar criticism. Like, man, like, Cade only has 11 pass attempts. Like, what, and it looks like he might be done for the day. I'm like, I sure hope not. And he's like, well, why are you upset about that? And I'm like, well, this is why, because you're like, show me a team that has been able to run the ball on Ohio State at will, like in the last 8 years. Right. It hasn't happened. Like, so you're going to have to throw the ball. Like, and I would rather throw the ball against Western, a team that I know that I'm going to win. Even if I threw 2 picks, I'm still going to win this game, right? We're better. Like we're gonna win this game. I would rather do it then versus going into Ohio State and you just don't know. Like I don't know how. You know what I mean? I don't know how our pass game is going to be. Like, because as a coach, you draw up all these concepts and things like that, and you know for sure it's going to work, or I'm pretty sure they're going to line up like this against, when we get in this formation, and I'm pretty sure they're going to play this coverage. But you also don't know. They might not play that, right? I think they're going to line up in play zone against this formation. Well, they might line up in man. So it's like, well, the idea and design of the play is just different now. So I just don't, and another person that we both know, Joey, had mentioned on Twitter as well. He's just like, you would rather just throw him out there like against Western and just throw the ball all over. Like he's just a freshman or, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's literally exactly the point. Yes, I would rather throw him out there against Western Michigan versus throwing him out there against Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State. Like Put him in the stressful situations before the environment is stressful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like to put somebody in a stressful situation and also a stressful environment, that's when you get varying results where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. He might throw 3 picks. He might throw 3 touchdowns.
Minnesota, like CJ, or Strode, however you say his last name, he struggled, the first half. And we were texting him, and I called it. I want credit. I did call a Minnesota upset. I called a Minnesota upset, but I was right in terms of why I gave you the reasons I gave you why I thought Minnesota had a legit shot. You put an inexperienced quarterback, and Cade is still inexperienced. He only.
It was his second start.
It's like we act like Cade was like this proven commodity from last year. No, like he didn't play that much. If you really think about it, he's inexperienced. He's not prepared to go on a road game at night in Penn State and be ready to pass and throw a game our way. He's not ready for that. Right. I'm not saying he can't do that.
Right. And the thing is, he might be, but I would rather, exactly. We just don't know.
You're just going on hope. And so that's what we're talking about. Neither of us are displeased. They played a good game today. It's all about, are you doing the right things? Are we trending the right direction? Well, I would ask anybody who has the same thoughts that Joey and not Joey, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Joey. Corey and Kevin has. Just think about it, right?
Yeah.
Think about the last 2 years on the hardball. What you saw today, is it really different this time of year than any other year? September, we're playing Air Force. We're playing these other teams that are not on our level, and we tend to blow them out. We tend to impose our will. That's what we did today. And think about how those seasons ended, right? Were we ready to beat Ohio State, right? Were we ready to beat those better teams? That's what we're talking about. We're not displeased. We're talking about the bigger picture, and how we're trending towards that. So it's not negative. It's just keeping a bigger picture in mind. And that's it, And
I think if you're a Michigan fan, and I think that should be clear and easy to see. Like it's not, man, it's unhappy like with the result. It's just like, man, I would have just loved to see Cade throw it a little more. Like that's not a scathing review. It's just like, no, it is what it is. I would have liked to see Cade more. So I don't think that's anything terrible, but that's just kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Nicholas is just talked about JJ's throw, which I think we know what throw it was. What did you think about that throw?
Buying time with your legs. You're a true freshman. Buying time with your legs. It's kind of a no-no to throw across the field. Fundamentally, like I'm not saying it's a JJ thing that you never throw across the field as a quarterback.
Yeah, across your body. Yep.
Yeah. But to do that and have the composure that he had in one play, like I said with the Dare Green example, you're like, okay, yeah, that's a pop. When a player makes a play that pops on the screen, that was one of those moments where I'm like, that kind of looked like Baker Mayfield in a way, for one play, right?
I mean,
we took a net, and it was ironic with JJ, but a couple plays before then, there was and Dan Orlowski did a really good job talking about getting kind of insight of being a young quarterback and learning. There was a tight end screen they called, and the tight end wasn't open, I don't believe. And they just, I think the D tackle or D end released, he came straight at JJ, and JJ kind of just like waited. It almost like he tried to wait for the guy to get open, and he took a pretty bad hit. And, those are one of those things where he'll learn to get rid of the ball or when to eat it and go, and live to play another day. But, it was good, man. It was good to see. It's exciting. I don't think it's worked. It was, enough plays with that to say he's ready to see Cade. But it was good. It was good to see potential in that play for sure.
Yeah, it was incredible. You could kind of see it stewing and brewing in his head a little bit. Like, I mean, obviously it was like a half a second because, he stiff arms the DN who's pressuring him. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's about to fling this down the field. Like, cause sometimes you just get in that mode where it's like, well, you're probably pressing a little bit, like, because I think if if JJ froze everything right then, right, and just froze it, and he was in the quarterback's meeting room, and they're watching film on tomorrow, Sunday or Monday or whatever, and coach is like, should you throw this? Like even like literally, say we freeze in time, right, and coach says that like, hey, JJ, what should you do right here? I should just keep it, coach, or just kill it. You know what I mean? Which is basically just throw it out of bounds, like live to live another play. That's what JJ would say. But he took a shot and was like, hey man, good, like do it, go for it. It just like everything about it, like the ball placement, like the amount of arm strength he needed to throw that ball, like it was incredible, man. I see why now, like he gets the type of attention and hype that he does, because that's incredible. Like I've seen young guys that somehow like get a lot of hype, and you see them throw the ball, and I'm like, dude, this guy's got like a noodle arm. Like with JJ, I'm like, oh no, he is spinning it. Did you see the play where Western had jumped off sides and Michigan had a free play? It was when JJ was in, and he threw the ball, and it was pass interference, like threw it kind of over the middle.
Yeah,
that was another like impressive, because when they showed the replay, I mean that was a tight spiral. Like it wasn't a completion, but it was a tight spiral. I'm like, man, like it looked good, man. He looked good.
Yeah. Well, for one, I say my apologies. For some reason, there's like an ice cream truck right outside this house. So like,
good.
Yeah.
Good. It's Saturday. It should be an ice cream truck outside.
So if you could pick up on that volume, I can't get rid of it. It's a loud truck. I actually wish I could have some ice cream. But no, it was very impressive, man. And I was glad to see him get some experience. For once, it was good to see a young Michigan quarterback coming in, not because we needed a change at quarterback, but because we're playing well and we want to give some guys some experience. Last few years, it's always like it's the Michigan quarterback carousel, right? Things are not going well. Fan base is clamoring, including myself, for the next thing, the guy that we hear all the hype about. And then the game's not going well. You get the boos going in the big house, and all of a sudden you see a Joe Milton. You see a Sugar Shane Morris. I know I'm going way back there, but I'm just throwing guys out there that come to name.
Sugar Shane Morris. Oh,
Golden
man.
Spade. You see a John O'Corn. You see all these different guys, and we're just clamoring. Brandon Peters. You know what I'm saying? Dylan McCaffrey. We're clamoring for the next thing, and it was good to see a game that's going really well and a guy just getting some time to show himself. So what he can do.
I think at the end of the day, the Michigan, especially the quarterback room, like the Michigan quarterback room is in very capable hands. Like Michigan has at least two guys who I think are capable, and we haven't even seen Bowman yet. Which honestly, I mean, outside of like a monster blowout, like I'm hoping you don't, because it's either got to be Cade or JJ. Like as far as who's going to be taking snaps. So. That's interesting. There was a comment I wanted to take a look at, but maybe not. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. What I was gonna say is, so the interesting thing is right? Michigan just played Western Michigan, right? They didn't play anybody else. But the thing that I think about is, I think about Michigan State, who, scored 38 points against Northwestern. And I looked it up. Northwestern hasn't given up 38 points since like 2019.
Right.
Like it's been like, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Right.
So it just, as you kind of go through, it's like, okay, yeah, we're taking care of the team that's across from us. Like, yes, that's the people inside the program have to do that. For us who are not inside the program, like we get to look at that stuff too and just say, listen, man, like, I get it. Like, yes, we scored, 40 something points against, Western, but it's like at the same time too, like, Michigan State scored 38 against a conference opponent, like, and one that prides themselves on defense. Like, you can, like, it just, that's one of those things where I don't want to say it's worrisome, but it's something to keep an eye on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but and I want to be careful with doing that because for one, Northwestern had a ton of regression and turnover, and so you actually, if you look at historically, Pat, I love me some Pat Fitz, but he tends to struggle. His teams get off to a slower start in seasons, and then they pick up. So um, there were some people who thought State had a really good chance last night, and they proved that. So in terms of, you're going to compare. Who had more impressive wins. I think you need to give that a few more games. I say give it a 3 to 4 game span. If you look, I agree with you. I think State is a very close team to Michigan. Like, I think they have very similar situations in a way. In terms of coming to the season, some question marks. Teams that are rebuilding in a way, right? And so it's easy to compare them both. And I'm doing the same thing, but I would be more prone to doing that on a week by week, more of a sample size basis, 3 to 4 game sample size basis. Right now, I'm just not so sure because I don't know what Northwestern is. Let's say Northwestern goes out and loses their next 3 games, right? It may sound silly, but maybe Western Michigan is a better team than Northwestern at this point in time, or just as good. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you just never know, right? In Western Michigan, look, they don't have some huge uh, football history, but PJ Fleck did get them to the Sugar Bowl or All State Bowl, something like that. So, I mean, that's not act like Western can't be a formidable opponent, and Northwestern has been at the cellar of the Big Ten. So it's we'll see.
That's aggressive. They were just an Indy like 2 years ago.
I'm talking about historically. I'm talking about
Okay, gotcha.
they haven't always been really good. You know what I'm saying? So
yep, I got you.
You gotta be careful how you're looking at them on a year-to-year basis. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Nick says that people need to learn not to take so much away from week one. He said we don't know yet who's good and who's not. What do you think about that?
Well, he's right. And that goes both ways. So when someone says that, it goes both ways. It goes both with the positives that you see in week one, also the negatives, right? So, if we're going to look at, let's say, a positive that we said from this week, what's the running game? Well, then if that's the case, then we can't get too carried away with how Haskins and Coram did today. Because we're thinking they're going to be one. I haven't said this. I'm not saying people have said this, but let's say that you're like, oh my gosh, we have the best 1-2 tandem in the Big Ten offer today. Because there's some people, believe it or not, that will believe that we have the second best, the best 1-2 tandem in the conference. Well, based on how they played today, I can see why you'll say that. Maybe how they played today, right? But you got to be careful because it goes week to week. It's based on the opponent, your strengths and weaknesses compared to that opponent's strengths and weaknesses. On the flip side, let's say on a negative would be we talked about the play calling. Maybe they are more aggressive next week, right? And we're like, well, week 2, maybe Washington and their game plan for Washington, Gaddis and Harbaugh sit down there like, you know what, we can really exploit this team's secondary. And we see a totally different game plan and attack, right? So, no, you're right about that. But it's about breaking down what you see and what it could mean going forward. It's not saying anything is definitive. So I think it's okay to have, reactions. It's just about not putting things set in stone and things that can't change going forward.
Yeah. Well, I guess my response to it would be, what did I think it was Nick. My response would be, how did you feel after the Minnesota game last year? Like, because you know what I mean? Like, right, I know how I felt.
I felt like I was floating on there. I'm like, oh,
so
man.
To me, it's fine as long as it's no matter how week one goes, like you are in the middle, like you're steady.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? Like,
but at the time, now we talked about who you played, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, Minnesota just had an 11-win season, 10 to 11-win season. If I'm not mistaken, beat Auburn in their bowl game, right? Because that game was at the same time we played Michigan and Alabama played. We watched that game together. And, we're like, wow, PJ Fleck really got this thing going.
Mm-hmm.
In Minnesota, primetime game, Michigan at Minnesota, right? PJ Fleck is now potentially becoming a player in the Big Ten. Had a lot of hype. There are some people who thought Michigan wouldn't win that game. That's going to be a tough game for Michigan. And they go there and they dominate. Yeah, you got emotionally swayed based on the hype going to the game. So, you do it both ways. You do it, people get swayed and they take a lot of it, both positive and negative. So, if I assume, I could be wrong, that he was making that comment to say that maybe pointing out the negatives we're taking from this game. Trust and believe, we do both. We're talking about both the positives and negatives, and that can change week to week.
Yeah. So Nicholas had mentioned he wants to know about offensive and defensive line, which I think we did talk about. The O-line, did a great job. I mean, anytime you rush for 300 yards or something close to that, like you're doing you're doing well. And D-line, like Aiden Hutchinson, like I said, we've talked about it. Like he would have, if I didn't have Blake Coram as my MVP for the game, like Hutchinson would have been it. Because I think he is, to me, he's a guy that has the motor of Chase Winovich, but talent wise, like I don't even know what D lineman to put with that. Like he just has it together. You know what I mean? Like he is the total package, and if he puts it together, man, he's going to be special.
He had comparisons. You hear the comparisons to Terrell Suggs? You hear that?
To Terrell Suggs?
Now look.
Terrell Suggs had 27 sacks or 24, 27 sacks in the season. I don't think we're there.
Look.
Nicholas said he brought it. Rashawn Gary.
Yeah.
Nick, okay. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to look up very quickly Rashawn Gary's stats at Michigan, because
man, we don't need to be depressed, dude. All right, like, come on, man.
No. That's fine. He brought it up. So 2016, as a true freshman, he had a half a sack. 2017, true sophomore, he had 5.5 sacks. 2018, as a junior, he had 3.5 sacks. Rashawn Gary left Michigan without 10 sacks. A career, and he played 3 years there.
He left without an impact play. I said, we're not okay.
I know this is not a shot, but I knew that was going to come up.
Rashawn Gary, and the problem I always have with Gary, there was never a play. See, why did you do this? Who did that? Nick did that? Because it hits a soft spot. Rashawn Gary never had one impact play at Michigan. That was the thing. It's like he never had one play. You were like, man, like Malik Harrison for Ohio State, right? Big. In the game's tight. He does a huge strip sack against Tanner Morgan at Ohio State, right? A strip sack that turns to a touchdown. That's making an impact play that I will remember, even as a Michigan fan. Like when I see that guy, I'm like, I'm scared of that dude. You gotta block that guy. He is dangerous. The
funny part is
feared Rashawn Gary. I'm just being honest.
The funny part is Malik Harrison. So he played 4 years, but he was a linebacker, and he had almost as many sacks as Rashawn Gary did at linebacker.
Look, man. Look, we're not going to get into Rashawn Gary. Bless that young man. He's in Green Bay trying to make a name for himself. He's still getting hype articles, even though he's never done anything. In terms of really showing himself to be, a game-changing player. So, whatever. But when it comes to Aiden Hutchinson, I think he's a really good player. I wouldn't put him on the level of a Bosa. I think he's like a level below that, but I think he's a really good, a really good defensive end, and
he could be special, man. He could be special. He seems to have the work ethic, his technique. He could be.
It looks like he's a guy that wants to learn. He has a great mix of great character, high work ethic, and talent. Like all the things you need to be a really good player. And if I was a football team, I would take him for sure.
I think that was the coolest part with Chase Winovich is I don't think Chase was the most talented dude on the field, but motor wise, like he just was nonstop, and that's how he was impactful. It was just like, I'm just not gonna stop going. Like I'm going to go until I'm legitimately exhausted, and then you're gonna have to take me out, and then I'm coming right back in the next play, and I'm gonna do the same thing again and again. And he became like that guy who was super impactful just based on trying hard. Like, and that is incredible. I love those type of guys. Like, cause it's just, there's something about it, like, to where it's just like, no, I know I'm not the most talented, but I'm just going to try as hard as I humanly can. And that's how I'm going to make an impact. And then to do it and like do it well is pretty incredible. So yeah, it's interesting. So real quick, let's talk about next week. Michigan's got the 8 p.m. game, the prime time spot against Washington. What do you think? I'm sure we'll get into it a little later on this week, but what are your initial thoughts?
Well, if people recall gosh, I can't turn my hat straight. Recall our preseason, our season preview. I had Michigan going 6-6, and I had them losing to Washington. And I said that's a swing game. This can change week to week by things I see. I like some of the things I saw this week. I think that I think that we have the explosiveness in offense to beat Washington, and defensively, as long as we're healthy in the front seven, we should be able to impose our will there as well. I think it's a really good matchup for Michigan. I do. Also, Washington's coming from the West Coast. So based on what I've seen this week and taking that into account, I think I'm willing to flip my initial.
Oh, I think you're taking way too much out of game one. Okay.
Yeah,
no, you did say that for the
beginning. And I said that, and the reason why I'm being very consistent with this. The reason why I can do that is I said during that video, can't get this hat right. I said that we don't know much about this team. So I can't give them so much credit and hype and trust based on a lot of question marks because there's a lot of change. So yes, week by week, as they continue to show positive things in this area, it makes you feel a lot better about some of these games, especially the games I have as swing games. So I like the matchup, and if you ask me today, I'm picking Michigan to win that game. It was seeing a big house packed again. I just think
that was cool to see.
Yeah,
that was cool to see.
I'm giving them the edge. That's my initial thought.
How much do you think they're going to win by? And obviously, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire, but if you had to call it today.
I say 17.
Oh, okay. I was thinking around between 10 to 14 points. I could see them winning by. I just think we talked about it. I had the assumption this year with just Don Brown not being the defensive coordinator again, that the defense was going to be improved. And I thought it was going to be much improved. And it to me, by all accounts, it has been from what we have seen so far. So I think the defense will do a really good job next week. And I think number one, Aiden Hutchinson is going to get a lot more attention than he got today. Western tried to block him one-on-one way too many times.
Right.
He'll get a lot more attention, but I think that can open it up for Morris to get more pressure and single him up.
Man, anytime you see a guy disrupt the interior, I mean, to me, the exterior passer rushers, the Von Millers, insert whatever guy you want to there, big name. They get a lot of the hype. They are the guys who are selected high in the draft. They are a premium, but to have a disruptor on the interior of your defensive line is incredibly impactful because you can't scheme around them. Like,
right.
If a pass rusher on the outside, you can have a tight end chip. You can have a running back chip. You can have even a running back there to chip. You can't really do much with an interior lineman because once they beat your interior with your center and your guards, they're having a straight.
There's nobody else there, right? He's so close to the right. You look at the proximity to the quarterback, and it's like they're literally the closest. Like I'm literally 5 steps from right, and that's why Aaron Donald makes so much money because he's right there and can generate a pass rush and is rocking and rolling. So
you get there so much quicker. You're talking about as a pass rusher. If you beat a guy pretty good, you may get there 4 seconds. Interior lineman, if you cook a center or guard, you're there in a split. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hence that's why Vincent Smith helmet is still rolling right now because Davion Clowney just absolutely he basically went through our offensive line like paper, and blew poor Vincent Smith barely got the ball in his stomach, and then his helmet came off. So it's just. I like Mike Morris. I think that would help him, make some more plays too. But it's gonna be fun, man. This is a great start. All in all, great start. And we'll take it and move forward.
You're 1-0, and you're about to head into a primetime game. Mm-hmm. Nothing could be better. So. Perfect. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. I've got an Alabama game to tend to. It looks like they're up 20-0 per, who was that? Dependent Fanatic. Appreciate you. But Dre, appreciate you, my brother. Michigan 1-0, 47-14 win against Western Michigan. Ran the ball well, threw the ball a little bit. Did well. We'll keep updated as far as the Ronnie Bell injury. We're definitely, prayers about that. You never want to see anybody get injured. So that really sucks. Hoping that, that he has a speedy recovery, whatever happens.
It was a great play. I mean, he was cooking them. I mean, he was one. It's not like he had a ton of room to run because it was a line drive kick. Like he caught it and the defenders were in his face. He just cooked them. Nate moved, boom, 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 boom. And he was one more level away from just breaking through. And he was fighting. And that's what sucks, dude, because he was fighting for extra yards. A lot of guys, they'll try to do a couple moves and they get off to the sideline, right? He was trying to make a play and just got caught. So you feel for the guy. But, he has a bright future in this game, regardless of what happens.
For sure.
So don't worry about it.
Well, that is it for the Maize and Blue review, our first one. And so next week it's going to be a little bit later, probably around midnight. So I'll probably have to get me a nap in earlier in the day because I'm 35. So staying up, that's the latest I stay up. So, so thanks everybody for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. Feel free to comment and subscribe. We'd love to, to kind of boost our subscribers. And if you're a fan of other teams, Mark Rogers has, I think 16 other, channels with Oklahoma and a lot of other, teams. So feel free to subscribe to that and make sure to subscribe to Mark's main channel at The Voice of College Football. I truly believe he is the hardest working man in the podcasting sports business, to even create 16 different channels and be, creating content for all of them is pretty incredible, because we have literally one channel and it takes a lot of work to create content for that one. So
side note real quick.
Sure.
Biggest surprise. I'm gonna throw a question at you real quick. You gotta go quick.
Okay.
Popcorn. Biggest shocker the weekend. I'm gonna go first. Sam Howell, North Carolina, look like frauds. Come on, what are you doing?
I'm gonna say Oklahoma, man. Same old song. You're good offensively and defensively. You don't have enough to win anything of significance outside. I mean, Big 10, Big 12 championship, I think is, admirable, but no, you're going. The same thing's going to happen. Oklahoma's probably going to make it to the championship. The college football playoff, and they're going to play somebody for real, maybe even Clemson, and get blown out, get the doors blown off again, because you can't stop anybody. Tulane, I think the final score of that game was 40-35. And maybe this is a video for another day, but I cannot continue to call Lincoln Riley an offensive genius when you only score 40 against Tulane. I just can't. I can't. because you could have scored 80. If you're that good, you're an offensive genius. You have the front runner for the Heisman Trophy is your quarterback, and you scored 40 points, and you almost lost this game. Yeah. I just can't keep doing that. That can't be a continued.
Probably hater, man, but it's all right. You're right. Oh well, man. But I just want to throw that at you real quick.
That's a video for another day, but we might do it.
Yeah. I'll see you guys later.
Peace.